yesterday, Hamas accepted a U.S. proposed deal. It was a hostage prisoner exchange. Hamas said it would accept it on a Monday with minor word changes from the one that Israel and U.S. had presented to the group recently. The changes were made by Arab mediators in consultation with William Burns. He's the CIA director who's in the middle of these things. The new version keeps a key phrase, the eventual enactment of a sustainable calm wording that all sides had said earlier they could accept. Within hours of Hamas informing the U.S. that they will accept this deal that Israel had already more or less signed off on. You know, this is not a permanent ceasefire.
Yes.
It is just an attempt to have a sustainable calm.
That means Hamas made a significant concession there because their line was always permanent, but they're so desperate to avoid this Rafah slaughter that they conceded on that point.
And there would be three phases of this, of reciprocity. Hamas would free hostages, women, elderly, and those in need of medical treatment, in return for a 42-day ceasefire and release of a much larger number of Palestinian prisoners. Israel had sought 33 hostages, but it's not clear how many women and elderly are still alive. And the first tranche could end up including remains. In the second phase, the two sides would work towards reaching a sustainable calm, which would involve the release of more hostages. Both officials acknowledged the warring parties would likely clash over the definition of sustainable calm, but that doesn't come until after a 42-day ceasefire. And it appears that once Israel realized Hamas was going to accept the deal that they had pretended that they had signed off on, that's when they realized, okay, we've got to attack Rafah now because they just called our bluff. And Israel moved along the southern border. It then took over the Rafah gate from Egypt and Gaza, pulled down the Palestinian and Egyptian flags, pulled up Israeli flags, rolled in tanks, supposedly sent leaflets to people and said, you should go.
There's nowhere to go.
We did a fundraiser, and we put their link to their GoFundMe in the page from a family. And I've heard through our contact from Muhammad, who is the brother of the family. There's still a couple of family members still within Gaza. I think it was a father, a brother. All of the women and children are in Egypt. They've closed the gate. Nobody can get out.
It was already very hard to get out because you have to pay off Egyptian officials.
You have to pay a lot of money.
A lot of money.
But now it's literally closed.
Yep.
And
they're caged in.
The text was something to the effect of, I can read specifically what it was. They're stuck in Rafah. They changed their tent to somewhere else. They're all living in tents in the street. They don't have diesel to drive to Khan Yunis. So the point being that Israel can drop leaflets all they want. There's no fuel for people to drive anywhere. There's no way to take elderly people to walk them 20, 5 miles, 2 miles, 3 miles, wherever it is that supposedly they're going to be safe.
With all your belongings, too.
Whatever's left.
The safe zones that have been designated, the UN says, have horrific conditions, and there's just nothing there. So, they at least erected some sort of camp, right? The displaced people, but the places that they're supposed to go, the conditions are already beyond unsanitary and disease-filled, but it's also just there's nothing there. There's nowhere to hide.
This is coming after, revelations at Al-Shifa that the UN is confirming that they're finding buried bodies, some of whom they suspect may have been buried alive.
In scrubs, mass graves outside of hospitals. And they're there was a report last week that they were considering separating the men from their families to root out the suspected terrorists. And it's like, where have we heard this kind of stuff before? They are basically caging them in the South and hoping that they can, inflict as much damage as possible. They're already bombing Rafah. So it's just a question of if this catastrophic ground invasion is allowed to happen.
Speaking of the term genocide, where we have seen this before is Kosovo with regards to the that population separation.
Hey, folks, don't forget to hit the subscribe button and check out our daily show. We do it every day at 12 p.m. Eastern for about 2.5 hours. We even take phone calls. You should check that out.